Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the horizon's edge, watching the stars streak past through the main viewing screen. After 18 months of travel, they were finally approaching their destination. This was humanity's first mission beyond the solar system, and Jake felt the weight of history on his shoulders. "Captain, we're dropping out of faster-than-light travel in 30 seconds, announced Lisa Rodriguez from the pilot's seat. Her hands moved smoothly across the controls, preparing the ship for normal space. Jake nodded and turned to his crew. Danny Walsh was at the engineering station, monitoring the ship's systems. Kevin Turner sat at communications, ready to record everything they might encounter. Dr. Amy Foster was at the science station, her instruments ready to analyze any new discoveries. "This is it, people," Jake said. "We're about to make history." The stars stopped moving as the ship dropped back into normal space. For a moment, everything was quiet. Then Amy's instruments began beeping rapidly. "Captain, I'm reading massive energy signatures ahead," Amy reported, her voice excited. "Multiple ships bigger than anything we've ever built." Jake's heart raced. "Are you saying we found aliens?" "That's exactly what I'm saying," Amy replied. Kevin's station suddenly came alive with signals. "Captain, I'm receiving transmissions. The computer is trying to translate them." On the main screen, shapes began to appear. Jake's breath caught in his throat. Dozens of enormous ships hung in space ahead of them. Each one was at least 10 times larger than the horizon's edge. They were beautiful and terrifying at the same time, made of what looked like crystal and metal combined. "My God," whispered Lisa. "They're incredible." The largest ship began moving toward them. It was massive, easily a mile long, and it glowed with internal light. As it approached, more ships moved into formation around it. "Kevin, do we have translation yet?" Jake asked. "Working on it, Captain. The computer is matching patterns and— Wait, I think we have something." A voice filled the bridge, speaking in heavily accented English. "Unknown vessel, identify yourself." "You have entered Zephyrian space," Jake stepped forward. This was the moment humanity had dreamed of for centuries. First contact with an alien species. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Earthship Horizon's Edge. We come in peace, seeking knowledge and friendship." But something went wrong with the translation. The computer, still learning the alien language, made a critical error. Instead of translating Jake's peaceful message correctly, it sent something very different to the alien ships. What the aliens heard was, "This is War Leader Jake Morrison of the Earth War Fleet Horizon's Edge. We come to claim dominance over all worlds in this region." On the bridge of the massive alien ship, Fleet Commander Veltar the Unbroken listened to the translation with growing anger. The Zephyrians had ruled this part of space for thousands of years. No one had ever dared to challenge them so boldly. Veltar was 12 feet tall, his body made of living crystal that glowed with internal fire. Like all Zephyrians, he was both beautiful and deadly. His people were the greatest warriors in known space, and they had never lost a war. "These humans dare to threaten us?" Veltar's voice rang like struck metal. "They declare war on the Zephyrian Empire with a single small ship?" His second-in-command, a smaller Zephyrian named Kethra, studied the human vessel. "Commander, their ship is tiny. Perhaps they do not understand our power." "Then we will teach them," Veltar replied. "All ships prepare weapons. We will show these humans what happens when someone challenges the Zephyrian Empire." Back on the horizon's edge, Jake waited for a response. The silence stretched on, and he began to feel uneasy. "Captain," Amy said quietly, "their ships are powering up weapons." "What?" Jake spun around. "That's impossible. We just told them we come in peace." "I'm reading massive energy buildup across their fleet," Amy confirmed. "Captain, I think they're about to attack." Before Jake could respond, the space around them lit up with weapon fire. Beams of pure energy lanced out from the alien ships, barely missing the horizon's edge. "Evasive maneuvers," Jake shouted. Lisa's hands flew over the controls, throwing the ship into a desperate spiral. More energy beams flashed past them, close enough to make the hull glow with heat. "Danny, I need everything the engines can give us," Jake called out. "Already on it, Captain," Danny replied, his fingers dancing over the engineering controls. "But we can't outrun them for long." The alien ships were faster and more powerful than anything humanity had ever built. The Horizon's Edge was a science vessel, not a warship. It had no weapons and only basic shields. "Kevin, try to send another message," Jake ordered. "Tell them this is a misunderstanding." Kevin worked frantically at his station. "I'm trying, Captain, but they're jamming our communications." More weapon fire erupted around them. One beam clipped their port engine, sending shockwaves through the ship. Sparks flew from damaged systems. Hull breach on Deck 3, Danny reported. We're losing atmosphere. Jake made the hardest decision of his life. Lisa, get us out of here. Jump to faster than light speed. But, Captain, we haven't finished our mission, Amy protested. Our mission is over, Jake replied grimly. We need to warn Earth. Lisa engaged the faster-than-light drive. The stars stretched into lines and the alien ships disappeared behind them. But Jake knew this wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. In the silence that followed their escape, the crew of the Horizon's Edge tried to understand what had happened. They had come in peace, but somehow they had started a war. What they didn't know was that pieces of their ship had been left behind in the battle. The Zephyrians collected these fragments and began studying them. They analyzed human technology, human biology, and human DNA. Fleet Commander Veltar studied the analysis reports with interest. These humans were smaller and weaker than Zephyrians. Their technology was primitive. Their ship was barely worthy of being called a warship. How can such weak creatures be so bold? Kethra wondered. Perhaps they have allies, Veltar mused. Or perhaps they are simply foolish. Either way, they have declared war on the Zephyrian Empire. We will hunt them down and destroy their homeworld. The Zephyrian fleet began to move, following the trail left by the human ship. They would track the humans back to their planet and end this war before it truly began. Meanwhile, the Horizon's Edge raced through space toward Earth, carrying news that would change humanity forever. They had made contact with aliens, but instead of the peaceful meeting they had hoped for, they had accidentally started an interstellar war. Jake stared out at the stars and wondered how everything had gone so wrong. In trying to extend the hand of friendship, they had somehow made the deadliest enemies imaginable. The war between humanity and the Zephyrian Empire had begun, and Earth had no idea what was coming. News traveled fast through the galaxy. Within days of the encounter, every major space station, trade hub, and planetary government had heard the incredible story. An unknown species called humans had declared war on the Zephyrian Empire. On the massive space station Nexus Prime, aliens from dozens of different worlds gathered in the central trading hall. The air buzzed with excited conversation in 100 different languages. Grex, a large purple alien from the Hornock Trade Guild, shook his massive head in disbelief. It cannot be true, he rumbled to his companions. No one challenges the Zephyrians. Beside him, a thin bird-like Thornian named Pip fluttered her feathers nervously. But the reports are coming from multiple sources. The Zephyrian fleet confirmed it themselves. These humans must be incredibly powerful, suggested Vex Scholar Nith, his multiple eyes blinking in sequence. Perhaps they have discovered some new weapon. At a nearby table, Captain Jorak of the independent merchant vessel Star Dancer laughed bitterly. Powerful? I've seen the scanner readings from the Zephyrian fleet. The human ship was tiny, a single vessel against 300 Zephyrian warships. Then they must be insane, Grex concluded. Only madness would explain such foolishness. The conversation was interrupted by a holographic news broadcast that appeared in the center of the hall. A Zephyrian news anchor, her crystal body glowing with authority, delivered the latest update. Fleet Commander Veltar the Unbroken has confirmed that the human vessel escaped after declaring war on our empire. The commander has been given permission to track the humans to their homeworld and destroy them completely. This unprovoked aggression will not be tolerated. The aliens in the trading hall fell silent. Everyone knew what happened when the Zephyrians went to war. Entire civilizations had been wiped out. Planets had been turned to glass. The Zephyrian Empire had never lost a war in over 2,000 years. Those poor humans, whispered Pip. They have no idea what they've done. Far away, aboard the Horizon's Edge, Captain Jake Morrison and his crew were racing back toward Earth. The ship's faster-than-light drive pushed them through space as fast as possible, but the journey would still take several weeks. Jake sat in his cabin, staring at the report he was writing for Earth Command. How do you explain that humanity's first contact with aliens had resulted in a declaration of war? How do you tell an entire planet that they were about to be attacked by the most powerful military force in the galaxy? A knock at his door interrupted his thoughts. Come in, he called. Dr. Amy Foster entered, carrying a datapad. Her face was pale with worry. Captain, I've been analyzing the sensor data from our encounter with the Zephyrians. What did you find? Jake asked, though he wasn't sure he wanted to know. Amy sat down across from him. Their technology is at least 500 years ahead of ours. Their energy weapons are more powerful than anything we've ever imagined. And their ships. She paused, searching for words. Jake, their smallest fighters are bigger than our largest battleships. Jake felt his heart sink. How many ships do you think they have? Based on what we saw, I estimate they have thousands of vessels. Maybe tens of thousands. Amy's voice was barely above a whisper, and that was just one fleet. The weight of what they had accidentally started settled on Jake's shoulders like a crushing load. They had doomed their entire species with a simple translation error. Meanwhile, on Earth, Admiral Grace Thompson was reviewing routine reports in her office at United Defense Command headquarters. The massive complex in Colorado coordinated Earth's modest space defense forces, which consisted mainly of patrol ships and asteroid mining vessels converted for military use. Her assistant, Lieutenant Sam Parker, knocked and entered. Admiral, we're receiving a priority transmission from the horizon's edge. Grace looked up in surprise. They're not due to report for another month. Yes, ma'am. Captain Morrison says it's urgent. Grace activated her secure communications terminal. Jake's face appeared on the screen, and she immediately knew something was terribly wrong. He looked like he had aged 10 years since she had last seen him. Admiral Thompson, Jake began, his voice heavy with exhaustion. I need to speak with you and General Hamilton immediately. And ma'am, you're going to want to contact the President. An hour later, Grace sat in the secure briefing room with General Roy Hamilton, head of Earth's military forces. On the main screen, Jake Morrison delivered the most important briefing in human history. We made contact with an alien species called the Zephyrians, Jake explained. But there was a translation error. Instead of telling them we came in peace, our computer told them we were declaring war. General Hamilton leaned forward. Are you telling me we accidentally started an interstellar war? Yes, sir. And it gets worse. The Zephyrians are the most powerful military force in this part of the galaxy. They've been conquering planets for thousands of years. Grace felt cold dread settling in her stomach. How long do we have? Jake checked his instruments. Based on their ship's capabilities and the route we took, I estimate they'll reach Earth in approximately 6 months. 6 months, General Hamilton repeated slowly. To prepare for war against an enemy that has technology centuries ahead of ours. There's something else, Jake continued. I've been monitoring long-range communications. Word of our declaration of war has spread throughout the galaxy. Every alien civilization knows what happened. What are they saying? Grace asked. Jake's expression grew even grimmer. They think we're either incredibly powerful or completely insane. Most of them are betting on insane. After the briefing ended, Grace and Roy sat in stunned silence. Finally, Roy spoke. We need to contact President Maria Santos immediately. This is bigger than just a military threat. Agreed, Grace replied. But Roy, how do we prepare for something like this? Our entire space fleet wouldn't last 5 minutes against what Jake described. I don't know, Roy admitted. But we have to try. We're not just fighting for Earth anymore. We're fighting for the survival of the human race. As news of the situation spread through Earth's government and military, one thing became clear. Humanity was about to face its greatest challenge. They had 6 months to prepare for war against an enemy that had never been defeated. Scientists began working around the clock to develop new weapons. Engineers started converting every available spacecraft for military use, and military planners began developing strategies for fighting an enemy with vastly superior technology. But deep down, everyone knew the truth. Humanity was about to fight a war they couldn't possibly win. The only question was how long they could survive before the Zephyrian Empire wiped them from existence. In space stations across the galaxy, aliens continued to discuss the impossible situation. A tiny unknown species had challenged the greatest military power in known space. It was either the bravest or most foolish thing anyone had ever witnessed. Soon they would learn which one it really was. President Maria Santos stood before the largest gathering of world leaders in human history. Representatives from every nation on Earth filled the United Nations Assembly Hall. The emergency session had been called within hours of receiving Captain Morrison's report. Ladies and gentlemen, President Santos began, her voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. We face an unprecedented threat to our species. In 6 months, an alien armada will arrive at Earth with the intention of destroying us completely. Murmurs of disbelief and fear rippled through the assembly. The German chancellor raised his hand. "Madam President, surely there must be some way to negotiate with these aliens." "Our translation error created this mess," Santos replied. "But according to our intelligence, the Zephyrian Empire does not negotiate with enemies. They have a simple policy: complete destruction of anyone who opposes them." The Russian premier leaned forward. "What are our military options?" General Roy Hamilton stepped up to the podium. "Our current space fleet consists of 47 vessels. Most are converted cargo ships and mining platforms. The enemy is bringing an estimated 300 warships, each one more powerful than anything we've ever built." Silence fell over the assembly. The mathematical reality was clear. Humanity could not win this war through conventional means. "Then what do you suggest?" asked the Japanese Prime Minister. Admiral Grace Thompson joined General Hamilton at the podium. "We fight differently. The aliens expect traditional space combat. We give them something they've never seen before." Over the following weeks, Earth transformed into a fortress world. Every major corporation and government agency contributed to the war effort. Factories that once produced cars and computers now manufactured weapons and armor. The International Space Station was converted into a command center and weapons platform. Commander Nick Adams found himself in charge of Earth's hastily assembled defense fleet. Standing on the bridge of the converted cargo ship New York, he watched as civilian vessels underwent rapid military modifications. "Commander, the Beijing has finished installing its missile launchers," reported his second-in-command, Major Beth Carter. "That brings our combat-ready ships to 31. Nick nodded grimly. 31 ships against 300. The odds were impossible, but they had to try. At the Jet Propulsion Laboratory in California, Dr. Tony Kim worked 18-hour days alongside engineer Susan Price. They were developing humanity's most desperate weapon, gravity manipulation devices based on theoretical physics. "If this works," Tony explained to Susan as they calibrated their prototype, "we can create gravitational fields that will disrupt their ship formations. And if it doesn't work?" Susan asked. "Then we'll die with the rest of humanity," Tony replied matter-of-factly. In underground bunkers around the world, Major Beth Carter coordinated the largest military construction project in history. Every major city was being prepared for siege warfare. Tunnels connected government buildings, hospitals, and supply depots. Surface-to-air missile systems were hidden in parks and on rooftops. "The aliens will expect us to surrender once their ships arrive," Beth explained to her officers. "Instead, we're going to make them fight for every building, every street, every room." At the Centers for Disease Control in Atlanta, Dr. Amy Foster had been working on humanity's most controversial weapon. Using samples gathered from the Zephyrian ship debris, she was developing a biological agent specifically designed to affect crystalline life forms. "It's not technically a disease," she explained to the ethics committee reviewing her work. "It's more like a computer virus that affects their crystal-based biology. It should disrupt their internal energy systems." "Is it lethal?" asked Dr. James Wright, the committee chairman. "Unknown," Amy admitted. "We don't have enough data on Zephyrian biology, but it might give us an advantage." The committee approved her research. In times of species-wide extinction, normal ethical considerations had to be set aside. Captain Jake Morrison had volunteered for the most dangerous mission of all. He would take a small stealth ship and gather intelligence on the approaching Zephyrian fleet. The modified scout vessel, Silent Runner, was barely large enough for Jake and 2 crew members. Pilot, Lisa Rodriguez, and systems specialist Kevin Turner. "This is suicide," Lisa said as they prepared for launch. "Probably," Jake agreed. "But we need to know what we're facing." 3 weeks into their mission, they found the Zephyrian fleet. Jake stared at the sensor readings in amazement. The alien armada was even larger than they had estimated. Over 400 ships traveled in perfect formation through space. "My God," whispered Kevin. "Look at the size of their flagship." The command ship was enormous, easily 5 miles long. It glowed with internal energy like a small star. Around it, smaller warships maintained precise positions in a complex geometric pattern. "They're beautiful," Lisa admitted. Jake activated the ship's advanced sensors, recording everything. But what he discovered was more important than ship counts or weapon capabilities. The Zephyrians fought like they had always fought, in rigid formations following ancient tactical patterns. "They're predictable," Jake realized. Look at their formation. It's perfect for fighting other ships like theirs, but what? Kevin asked. But they've never fought an enemy that doesn't follow the rules, Jake finished. When the Silent Runner returned to Earth, Jake brought more than intelligence. He brought hope. In the secure briefing room at United Defense Command, Jake presented his findings to the assembled military leaders. The Zephyrians are incredibly powerful, he explained, but they're also incredibly rigid. They fight with honor codes and traditional tactics that haven't changed in thousands of years. What does that mean for us? Asked General Hamilton. It means we fight dirty, Major Carter said with a grim smile. We use every trick humans have ever invented for warfare. Ambushes, suicide attacks, psychological warfare, and anything else we can think of. Admiral Thompson nodded slowly. We can't match their firepower, but we can be unpredictable. Dr. Kim's gravity weapons were installed on asteroids throughout the solar system. Dr. Foster's biological weapon was loaded into specially designed missiles. Commander Adams drilled his crews on tactics that would have horrified any military academy. Ramming attacks, using civilian ships as decoys and coordinated suicide runs. On Earth's surface, Major Carter's ground forces prepared defenses that relied on humanity's greatest strength, adaptability. Every building could become a fortress. Every citizen was trained in basic combat. Supply caches were hidden throughout every major city. As the final weeks passed, Earth's preparations reached a fever pitch. The planet's entire industrial capacity was devoted to war production. Orbital defense platforms were constructed from converted space stations. The moon was turned into a massive military base. But perhaps the most important change was in humanity itself. For the first time in history, the entire human race was united with a single purpose: survival. President Santos addressed the world one final time before the alien fleet's arrival. We are about to face an enemy that has conquered civilizations for thousands of years, she said. They expect us to be easy prey. They expect us to fight like every other species they've defeated. They expect us to follow their rules, she paused, looking directly into the camera. They're about to learn that humans don't follow anyone's rules but our own. In space, long-range sensors detected the approaching Zephyrian fleet. They would arrive within days. Earth was as ready as it could be. The question now was whether human determination and ingenuity could overcome impossible odds. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when you declared war on humanity. Fleet Commander Veltar the Unbroken stood on the bridge of his flagship, Crystal of Eternal Victory, as the Zephyrian armada dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of Earth's solar system. Before him spread the human homeworld and its pathetic defenses. Commander, reported his tactical officer Kethra, we count 47 human vessels arranged in defensive positions around their planet. They also have primitive orbital platforms and surface-based weapons. Veltar's crystalline body pulsed with amusement. 47 ships against our 400. These humans are either braver than I thought or more foolish. Orders, Commander? Asked his weapons officer. Standard formation attack, Veltar replied. We will show them the power of the Zephyrian Empire before we destroy their world. The massive alien fleet moved into perfect battle formation, just as they had done countless times before. Each ship took its precise position in patterns refined over millennia of warfare. It was beautiful, terrifying, and completely predictable. On the bridge of the converted cargo ship New York, Commander Nick Adams watched the alien fleet approach. His hands were steady, but his heart was racing. This was it, the moment that would determine whether humanity survived or became extinct. All ships, this is Commander Adams, he said into his communication system. Remember, we're not trying to win a fair fight. We're trying to survive. Use every dirty trick we've practiced. Major Beth Carter's voice came through from the orbital command center. Nick, we're tracking their formation. They're moving exactly like Captain Morrison predicted. Good, Nick replied. Let's give them something they've never seen before. The Zephyrian fleet opened fire first, sending massive energy beams across space toward the human ships. The weapons were devastating, each shot capable of destroying a human vessel with a single hit. But the human ships didn't behave like the aliens expected. Instead of meeting them in organized battle lines, the Earth vessels scattered like frightened fish. Some fled toward the asteroid belt. Others dove toward Earth's atmosphere, and a few seemed to panic and fly in random directions. What are they doing? Kethra asked, confused. This is not proper battle formation. Veltar frowned. In thousands of years of warfare, no enemy had ever abandoned formation so quickly. Perhaps they are cowards. Continue the attack. But as the Zephyrian ships pursued the scattered humans, Commander Adams sprung his first trap. The asteroids that the human ships had fled toward suddenly came alive with weapons. Dr. Kim's gravity manipulation devices activated, creating invisible fields that pulled the alien ships off course. What is happening? Veltar demanded as his perfect formation began to break apart. Before anyone could answer, the human ships that had fled toward Earth's atmosphere suddenly reversed course. But they weren't alone. Dozens of civilian vessels had launched from Earth's surface, all of them flying directly at the Zephyrian fleet. Commander, those appear to be cargo ships and passenger transports, Kethra reported. They're not even armed. Then why are they attacking us? Veltar asked. He got his answer when the first civilian ship reached a Zephyrian cruiser. Instead of firing weapons it didn't have, the human vessel rammed directly into the alien ship's hull. The explosion was visible across the solar system. Impossible, breathed Veltar. They're sacrificing themselves deliberately. More civilian ships followed, their pilots knowing they wouldn't survive but determined to take alien vessels with them. The Zephyrians, who viewed warfare as an honorable contest between warriors, were horrified by these suicide attacks. This is not warfare, Kethra said, his voice shaking. This is madness. But the humans were just getting started. Commander Adams led his remaining military vessels in coordinated attacks that ignored every rule of civilized combat. They used decoy signals to confuse alien sensors, launched missiles that split into dozens of smaller warheads, and employed electronic warfare to disrupt Zephyrian communications. When 3 human ships surrounded a Zephyrian destroyer, they didn't try to defeat it in fair combat. Instead, they all rammed it simultaneously from different angles, destroying themselves but taking the much larger alien vessel with them. Commander, Kethra reported with growing alarm, we've lost 12 ships to these suicide attacks. Our formation is completely disrupted. Veltar stared at the tactical display in disbelief. His perfect battle plan was falling apart. The humans fought like wild animals instead of civilized warriors. All ships begin landing operations, he ordered. We will take their planet from the surface. Hundreds of Zephyrian dropships launched from the fleet, carrying thousands of crystal warriors toward Earth's surface. The aliens expected the ground battle to be easier than the space engagement. They were wrong. Major Beth Carter watched the alien dropships descend from her command bunker beneath New York City. All units, remember your training. Don't give them any fixed targets. The Zephyrians landed in perfectly organized formations, expecting to face human armies in traditional battlefield confrontations. Instead, they found empty cities and silent streets. The first alien patrol to enter downtown Manhattan was hit by explosives hidden in a subway tunnel. The second patrol was attacked by civilians with hunting rifles firing from apartment windows. The third patrol found the bridges out and the tunnels flooded. Where are their warriors? Demanded Ground Commander Zethar as his troops reported strange encounters across the planet. His question was answered when human soldiers began appearing everywhere and nowhere. They attacked from sewers, from rooftops, from hidden bunkers, and then disappeared before the Zephyrians could respond. In London, alien troops were led into the underground rail system, where humans had set up a maze of traps and ambushes. In Tokyo, office buildings became fortresses where every floor was a separate battlefield. In Moscow, the humans used the city's steam tunnels to move unseen beneath the alien positions. The Zephyrians, trained for formal combat between organized armies, had no experience with urban guerrilla warfare. Every human civilian seemed to be a potential enemy. Every building could hide an ambush. Every street corner might conceal a trap. This is not how warfare is conducted, Ground Commander Zethar reported to Fleet Commander Veltar. These humans fight without honor. They attack and then flee. They use their own civilians as soldiers. Can you defeat them? Veltar asked. Eventually, Zethar replied, but the casualties will be enormous. We could lose half our forces taking just one of their cities. In space, the battle continued to go badly for the Zephyrians. Dr. Foster's biological weapon had been deployed in specially designed missiles that targeted the alien ships. The virus began spreading through their crystal-based systems, causing power failures and communication breakdowns. Captain Jake Morrison, leading a small squadron of stealth fighters, had infiltrated the alien fleet and was attacking their command ship from inside their own formation. His pilots used the confusion caused by the biological weapon to approach undetected. "Remember," Jake told his squadron, "we're not trying to destroy their flagship. We're trying to disrupt their command structure." Lisa Rodriguez flew her fighter directly at the massive alien command ship's communication array. "See you on the other side, Captain," she said before crashing her ship into the crystal structure. The explosion damaged the Zephyrian fleet's primary communication system. Suddenly, ships that had operated in perfect coordination for thousands of years couldn't talk to each other. Kevin Turner, flying alongside Jake, targeted the ship's sensor array. His sacrifice blinded the flagship to what was happening around it. With their communications disrupted and their formation broken, the Zephyrian fleet began to experience something they had never felt before: fear. "Commander," Kethra reported frantically, "we're losing ships faster than we can count them. The humans are using weapons and tactics we've never encountered." Veltar watched his perfect armada falling apart around him. These humans fought like nothing he had ever seen. They broke every rule of civilized warfare. They sacrificed themselves without hesitation. They turned their entire civilization into a weapon. For the first time in his life, the undefeated Zephyrian commander considered the impossible: retreat. "Sir," Kethra said quietly, "perhaps we should withdraw and request reinforcements." Veltar's crystal body dimmed with shame. The Zephyrian Empire had never retreated from battle, but they had also never faced an enemy like humanity. As another wave of human suicide ships struck his fleet, Veltar made the most difficult decision of his career. "All ships," he broadcast on the emergency frequency, "begin withdrawal. We retreat." The word spread through both fleets instantly. The mighty Zephyrian Empire, conquerors of 1,000 worlds, was retreating from a single human planet. On Earth, Major Carter received the report with amazement. "They're actually leaving," she told her troops. "The aliens are retreating." But the cost had been enormous. Thousands of human ships had been destroyed. Millions of civilians had died in the ground fighting. Earth cities lay in ruins. Yet humanity had achieved the impossible. They had defeated the galaxy's greatest military power. As the Zephyrian fleet limped away from Earth, news of their defeat spread across the galaxy at the speed of light. An unknown species had done what no civilization had ever accomplished. They had beaten the... 6 months after the Battle of Earth, Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of humanity's newest warship, Defiance. The ship was built from salvaged Zephyrian technology and human engineering, a symbol of how much had changed since first contact. "Admiral, we're approaching Nexus Prime," reported his pilot, Commander Lisa Rodriguez. She had survived the battle by ejecting from her fighter at the last second, and now wore the scars of that day with pride. Jake nodded, adjusting his new uniform. The hastily formed Earth Space Command had promoted him after the victory, making him humanity's first interstellar ambassador. Today he would address the Galactic Council for the first time. "Any word from the advance team?" Jake asked. "Captain Amy Foster reports that all major species have sent representatives," Lisa replied, "including the Zephyrians." Jake felt a mixture of anticipation and nervousness. The galaxy that had once seen humans as unknown primitives now watched them with a combination of fear and respect. On Nexus Prime, the massive space station buzzed with unprecedented activity. The Central Council chamber, which normally hosted routine trade negotiations, had been converted for the most important diplomatic meeting in galactic history. Grex, the purple Hornock trader, stood with a group of his associates near the viewing gallery. "I still cannot believe it," he rumbled. "The humans actually defeated the Zephyrians." Beside him, the bird-like Thornian named Pip fluttered nervously. "The reports say they used tactics no civilized species would consider. Suicide attacks, civilian soldiers, biological weapons." "Effective tactics," observed Vex scholar Nith, his multiple eyes focusing on different displays around the chamber. "Perhaps we have been too civilized in our approach to warfare." At the center of the chamber, Fleet Commander Veltar the Unbroken waited with what remained of his command staff. The great Zephyrian leader looked diminished, his crystal body lacking its former radiance. Half of his fleet had been destroyed or damaged in the battle for Earth. "Commander," said his aide Kethra quietly, "the human ship is docking now." Veltar nodded slowly. In the month since the defeat, Zephyrian society had undergone massive changes. The empire that had ruled through military might for thousands of years was crumbling. Conquered worlds were declaring independence. The Zephyrian people themselves were questioning everything they had believed about their superiority. When Admiral Morrison entered the council chamber, conversation stopped. The human looked ordinary compared to the various alien species around him, yet everyone in the room knew what he represented. This small, unremarkable creature belonged to the species that had achieved the impossible. Distinguished members of the Galactic Council, Jake began, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber's translation systems. I am Admiral Jake Morrison, representing the human species and the planet Earth. He paused, looking around the chamber at the assembled aliens. 6 months ago, my people made first contact with the galaxy through an unfortunate misunderstanding. That misunderstanding led to war with the Zephyrian Empire. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Everyone knew the story, but hearing it from the human himself was different. We did not seek that war, Jake continued. But when it came to our door, we fought with everything we had. Not because we wanted to conquer anyone, but because we refused to be conquered. Fleet Commander Veltar rose from his position, the massive crystalline being towered over the human admiral, but somehow Jake seemed to command the space between them. Admiral Morrison, Veltar said, his voice carrying the harmonic resonance of his people, I must ask you a question that has haunted me since our defeat. How did your species learn to fight so effectively? Jake considered the question carefully. Commander, we didn't learn to fight the way we did. We've always fought that way. Human history is full of wars where smaller, weaker forces defeated larger, stronger enemies through determination, innovation, and the willingness to do whatever it takes to survive. But your tactics, Veltar pressed, they violated every principle of honorable warfare. That's exactly why they worked, Jake replied. You expected us to fight by your rules, using your definitions of honor. But when our entire species faced extinction, honor became secondary to survival. Dr. Amy Foster, now serving as Earth's chief xenobiologist, stood up from the human delegation. Commander Veltar, may I explain something we discovered about the difference between our species? Veltar gestured for her to continue. Most galactic civilizations evolved to fill specific environmental niches, Amy explained. The Zephyrians became perfect warriors. The Thornians became perfect diplomats. The Vex became perfect scholars. Each species developed specialized abilities for their particular strength. She activated a holographic display showing human evolutionary history. Humans evolved differently. We became generalists. We're not the strongest or the fastest or the smartest species in the galaxy. But we're the most adaptable. When faced with a new challenge, we don't rely on instinct or tradition. We innovate. Pip, the Thornian diplomat, spoke up from the gallery. Are you saying humans are naturally better at warfare? No, Amy replied. We're naturally better at solving problems. Warfare was just the problem we needed to solve. President Maria Santos stepped forward. As Earth's leader, she had come to Nexus Prime to formally announce humanity's position in galactic politics. Members of the Galactic Council, she said, Earth did not ask to become involved in galactic affairs. But circumstances have made us part of this community whether we wanted it or not. She looked around the chamber, making eye contact with representatives from dozens of species. We've learned that this galaxy has been shaped by the Zephyrian Empire's military dominance for thousands of years. Species either submitted to their rule or were destroyed. That system is now broken, President Santos continued. The Zephyrian Empire is collapsing, and a power vacuum exists that could lead to chaos and war across hundreds of worlds. Grex, the Hornock trader, called out from the gallery. What do you propose, human leader? Earth proposes to take responsibility for maintaining galactic peace, Santos replied. But we will do it our way, not the Zephyrian way. The chamber erupted in surprised conversation. The idea of humans who had been unknown 6 months ago, taking over the role of galactic peacekeepers, was shocking. Commander Veltar stood again. Admiral Morrison, President Santos, I must tell you something. In Zephyrian culture, when a warrior is defeated in honorable combat, they are bound to serve the victor. My empire has fallen, but my personal honor remains. The massive alien walked across the chamber and knelt before Jake Morrison. I offer my service to humanity. My knowledge of galactic military affairs, my understanding of alien cultures, my experience in warfare, all of this I place at your disposal. Jake stared at the kneeling Zephyrian commander in amazement. "Commander, you don't need to—" "I do," Veltar interrupted. "You have proven that humans are the strongest warriors in the galaxy. Zephyrian honor demands that I serve the strongest." Other Zephyrians in the chamber began kneeling as well. Within minutes, the entire Zephyrian delegation had offered their service to humanity, but the surprises weren't over. Pip, the Thornian diplomat, stepped forward. "The Thornian Republic would like to request a mutual defense treaty with Earth. Your innovative approach to problem-solving could be valuable in many situations." Similar requests came from other species. The Vex wanted to study human adaptation techniques. The Hornok wanted trade agreements. Even former enemies of the Zephyrians were seeking human protection. Admiral Morrison looked around the chamber in wonder. 6 months ago, humanity had been alone in the universe. Now they were being asked to lead a galactic civilization. "We accept these responsibilities," President Santos announced, "but understand that humans will bring our own methods to galactic peacekeeping. We don't believe in ruling through fear or domination. We believe in protecting the innocent and stopping those who threaten peace." Over the following weeks, Earth established its first interstellar government. The new Terran Federation included not just humanity, but any species that wanted to join a system based on cooperation rather than conquest. Commander Veltar became the first alien officer in the Terran Space Force, bringing invaluable knowledge of galactic military technology and tactics. Dr. Foster established the Galactic Adaptation Institute, where species could learn human problem-solving techniques. But perhaps the most important change was psychological. Across the galaxy, civilizations that had lived in fear of the Zephyrian Empire for thousands of years began to believe that change was possible. If humans could defeat the unconquerable, then perhaps any problem could be solved. On distant worlds, alien children learned new stories about the small, adaptable species that had changed the galaxy forever. Military academies studied human tactics. Diplomats tried to understand human negotiation methods. The galaxy had found new apex predators, but these predators were different. They didn't conquer for territory or resources. They conquered problems. Admiral Morrison stood on the observation deck of Nexus Prime, looking out at the stars. Commander Lisa Rodriguez joined him, carrying 2 cups of coffee. "Any regrets about how this all turned out?" she asked, handing him a cup. Jake thought about the question. "We lost a lot of good people in that,"